And welcome back to Stories from the River. This is your host, Charlie Maloof. We are here live from the Purpose Summit in the NASCAR Hall of Fame Gear Shop. And I'm here with Sam Thevanayagam, also known as Sam T. Sam, welcome to Stories from the River.
Nice being here, Charlie, and it's nice to be on your show.
Well, I'm so excited to have you.
Welcome to Stories from the River, a show in which we go behind the scenes at Broad River Retail.
I got to hear you speak at the Purpose Summit at the University of Notre Dame 2 years ago. And you had the coins, I think you gave everyone, right? And what did you speak about 2 years ago?
So it was more around the fact that that entrepreneurship and stewardship were two sides of the coin, Charlie. That's what I talked about.
I love it. I remember that. And so this is your second time to be at the Purpose Summit?
Yes, it is.
And why are you back this year?
It's just great to hang out with people to whom purpose matters. You know, the work that I do with my team has to have a lot of purpose. You know, we do a lot of work that's very important to the nation's defense. And so purpose is very core in what we do, right? And so it's important for me to be in this environment.
Well, so let's go back and talk about what do you do? What's your company do? And has purpose always been important to you?
Yes, I would say it has always been important to me, but I think it has become even more important as owner of two companies in the defense space. And so when you work in the defense space, right, you are actually taking care of our warfighter, the U.S. warfighter. And so one of the things that we recognized as a company is what set us apart from everybody else is that we love our freedom, you know, the freedom of being an American, right? We get to shop where we want to, we get to live where we want to, and so we recognize that freedom was extremely important. And so freedom is worth fighting for, and so that's what the U.S. warfighter does, and so it was important for us to be able to be in support of that. So that is our greater purpose, to actually defend freedom by supporting the warfighter, but we have added one more dimension to it, and that is taking care of the U.S. taxpayer. Because if you think about it, if as a nation, we couldn't be as strong as we are if we are spending a lot of money and we go broke, right? So we know that as individuals and as families, that it's important to be fiscally responsible. So in everything that we do, we bring that fiscal responsibility as part of our purpose.
How do you activate that within your company?
So that's a great question, Charlie. So the way we do that is, so for instance, you know, there are trailers that have a useful life, let's say for 20 years. About 18 years later, what we are doing is we are refurbishing those trailers, right? So rather than it being mothballed or going into a junkyard, we see useful life in those trailers. We modernize those trailers so we can get another 20 years out of it.
That's really cool.
You know, if you think about the B-52 bomber, we make parts and we make products and we make components that extend the life of that B-52. My wife and I, we live in a 150-year-old home. We very recently got our windows done. Right, so you think about that. So, you know, and changing windows in a fairly large home is expensive, right? So changing a roof, changing a window, these things can be very expensive. But part of what we are doing is getting more life out of that useful asset. And so we're also doing a lot of remanufacturing of engines, remanufacturing of launchers, anything that we can do to either repair or remanufacture it so that we don't have to go out and buy something brand new is something that we practice.
You're not just teaching it, you're living it.
Absolutely.
And that's probably dovetails into your discussion of stewardship. You know, we own furniture stores, and the best way we like to go into a new furniture store is to remodel it, to go into a second generation space and make it new again. So that what you're talking about really resonates with me. Now you came here from Philadelphia. How did you get into business? Did you start this business? You said two businesses. What are the businesses? Did you start them?
So I straight out of college, I went to work for a company that remanufactures auto parts in Philadelphia. So I grew up, you know, in Sri Lanka, which is a very agrarian society. Manufacturing was very new to me. So I was in a very uncomfortable space doing uncomfortable things in manufacturing, but God had a plan, right? He had to teach me all of those things. And so I learned a lot. I was a good student. I was curious. And because of that, I learned about reverse logistics, I learned about remanufacturing, I learned about repair. And so when I started my company in 2007, I thought I was going into the automotive industry. But the truth of the matter is the automotive industry was extremely slow at that point. There was no money being spent there. There was no opportunities. I pivoted into the defense space, and I recognized that the defense industry has a lot of expensive and mission critical assets. Many of them are 40, 50, 60 years old, and so these assets need people like us to be able to do the type of work that we do. So I really found my purpose in being able to solve this problem for the military.
So you started your company in 2007.
That's correct.
So I know the timeline here. The Great Recession happened.
Yep.
The car industry's suffering.
Yep.
And then you pivoted to the military, Department of Defense. But I can't imagine those contracts are coming around quickly. I mean, the sales cycle is probably, I don't know how you got into those contracts, but that sounds really, I'm sure there's an interesting story there.
It was very difficult. The first 3 years were extremely difficult. I was wondering whether I'd made a mistake, but God is faithful, and we stuck through it. And I got a small contract. I was able to do a good job with that. That led to more contracts. And today we work on some of the most expensive and mission critical assets, but also the most strategic assets. From the F-35 to the B-52. We're on the ALRAE, which is the aircraft launch and recovery on an aircraft, which is one of the most pivotal things, right? So if you look at our aircraft carriers, they're like freedom all over the world. It is sovereign territory wherever these aircraft carriers go. And what makes an aircraft carrier unique is not the ship itself, because it's actually a sitting duck sitting right there in the sea. What makes it so powerful is the aircrafts that are launched off that, and then they are recovered when they come back to land. And so we are doing that type of work, and so it's extremely important work that we do.
Yeah, and where's all your work being done?
So in Philadelphia and southern New Jersey primarily, and we're doing a really good job of making sure that we are bringing industry back into the US, getting small manufacturing going. And a big thing that we do, the last author talked about being a map maker, and that's what I did, right? So I was able to create a very unique system, a very unique roadmap for the military to follow, and it's that roadmap that is enabling us to be able to do that work. So that definitely resonated with me.
Yeah, about map making with Nick Craig. How did you think about this roadmap to create for the Department of Defense?
So I recognized that I had a solution in my mind, but it's interesting, right? When you go to a Japanese restaurant and you see the chef cooking in front of you, right? You say, wow, that looks good. But if I had to do that, I probably would do it the same way, right? And so I recognized that it was not enough for me to speak on something, that I actually had to put it in paper. So I created this roadmap, and it was something that I was able to sell to the US military. And the beautiful thing is, not only have we had millions of dollars on contracts because of it, there have been other small businesses that have also been able to benefit by it. So we have created an entire ecosystem because of that one roadmap.
That's really cool. Yep. Now, you've talked about God's faithfulness and your God being infused in your personal story. How do you infuse purpose or talk about this at work with your employees?
Right. So my personal mission statement is to create an environment where others can achieve their God-given potential. So my belief is that purpose and potential is really God's responsibility. He created us in His image, and He has given every one of us in purpose and potential. My responsibility is to create that environment, right? So what I can do in my small way is to create an environment where others can become successful. I have a chaplain who works with us, and he said to me, Sam, I'm like a goldfish, right? I needed a pond to fish in, to swim in, and I've created that pond. So he, by coming and working with us, he's able to use his gifts and abilities and talents to be able to serve people. So I see that as a huge differentiator in the type of work that we do.
I love that. You know your role and your purpose within the greater purpose. And so that gives you a big sense of purpose in how you go to work and steward your own company. Tell us a really cool story of someone who discovered their purpose working at, what's the name of your company?
So I have two companies, a company called Parts Life, which is in southern New Jersey. That's a company that I started. And Deval Lifecycle Support, I bought out of bankruptcy 7 years ago, and it was a turnaround situation.
Okay. And so do you have a cool story from just one example of?
So I had a young man who was serving a not a life sentence, but he was serving a fairly long time in prison. And his wife used to work for me. And when he found out that I was buying the company, he had said to his wife, ask Mr. Sam, what is it that I can do when I come out? And so I talked to him about welding. We had actually sent him the welding standard. He, in his own way, started to learn to weld while he was in prison. And before he came out, I had written to the parole officers and all of the authorities. They released him because there was a work program for him to come to. And today he's doing an incredible job. And it's interesting, last week I was at the Penn Relays with them. And he bought me a nice treat, at the Penn Relays. And I wanted to give him some money towards it. And he said, Sam, you can't do that. He says, you pay for my wife, you pay for me, you pay for my children. This is something that I want to do for you. So it's really neat to be able to see not only a product that is reclaimed, but even more important, to see lives reclaimed, right?
Yeah, people.
There's nothing more important than seeing lives that have been transformed because of the work that we do.
That's powerful.
Yep.
I could almost end it right there. However, I want to ask you one more thing, or maybe two more things. You're about to teach a breakout session, running with scissors.
Yep.
What is that about? What do you want people to take away from it?
So I think it's about risk mitigation, right? So one way to live your life is not even to leave home. Because it's a great way not to do anything wrong, right? And just, be about yourself. But when you're running with scissors, what you're doing is you're recognizing that there is risk involved and you're embracing that risk. And the truth of the matter is that the soldiers and the sailors and the airmen that we serve, we owe it to them to be able to take risks, sometimes to get cut, but to be able to run with it so that we can take care of the people that we need to take care of.
That's so good.
Thank you.
Okay, and then if people want to connect with you after the summit, what's the best way to find you or connect with you?
I think LinkedIn would be the best way. I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit because a lot of our customers are in the defense space. They're not easy to get to, so LinkedIn is a way that I'm very active, and so that's a great way to get to me.
Awesome. How are the Eagles going to be this year?
I think they're going to be pretty good. My children are telling me they did well on the draft. They have some veterans that they have recruited as well. So I think we're looking pretty good.
We'll see. Yeah. That is Sam Thevanayagam.
You got it.
Also known as Sam T.
Yep.
Sam, thanks so much for being on Stories from the River. Hey, that is Stories from the River live from the Purpose Summit here in the NASCAR Hall of Fame Gear Shop. Sam, good luck today at 3 o'clock. And thanks for being on the podcast with us.
Thanks for listening to Stories from the River. To check out more episodes, visit storiesfromtheriver.com. Join us again next week, and remember to like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast.